Good day, and thank you for tuning in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast. For all of our new listeners and viewers who are tuning in for the very first time, I'm Pastor Pope, and thank you for allowing us to come into your listening and viewing environment. We are here with you every Monday through Friday from 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, broadcasting live from the FijiWater.com sponsored studio, where you may discuss careers, finances, entrepreneurship. You may discuss marriage, divorce, raising children, blending families. You can discuss dating and relationships, whatever's in your heart and whatever's on your mind. God is concerned about that which concerns you. And so we are here for you and with you every Monday through Friday from 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And as always, our broadcast is brought to you daily by Fiji Water, Earth's finest water. You may already know that Fiji water comes from Fiji. However, did you know that it is created by nature? It is untouched by man. It starts as a tropical rainfall which slowly filters through layers of volcanic rock, where the water collects in a natural, sustainable artesian aquifer where it is bottled right at the source, free from human contact until you unscrew the blue cap. Fiji Water, Earth's finest water, will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery, and you'll save money at FijiWater.com. This is not just ordinary water. This is Fiji Water at FijiWater.com. And for those of you who continue giving on the Give segment of our app at New Life-Delaware, and those of you that have made a weekly or monthly commitment to support the broadcast by giving on the contribution pages of our websites at New Life Ministries International.com and New Life International CDC.com. We thank you for your support and for your commitment as we fulfill our commitment to God to be here, right here for you in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast, broadcasting live from the FijiWater.com sponsored studio every Monday through Friday from 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So you may have noticed we don't have any control over technology. There was a little delay in upload, but we are live on Facebook, we are live on YouTube, and we are live on RadioFreeNetwork.com. Go to RadioFreeNetwork.com /new-life. And every broadcast will be available to you right here in 3D. So we want to make certain that all of our listeners and viewers are up to date on everything that we're doing. And of course, as you know, we will have with us live in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast, Rebecca Buva, licensed and registered dietitian and nutritionist, BeccaTheDietitian.com, our monthly contributor, who is with us every first Thursday of the month. So you don't want to miss this. On this coming Thursday, Becca will be here with us. Scheduling permitted, she will be with us always the first Thursday of every month. Go to BeccaTheDietitian.com. You can view on her website all of the media that has been posted from the broadcast that she has done previously, and you can see all of the insurances that she accepts. Take advantage of her services. Go to BeccaTheDietitian.com, and of course she will be with us this Thursday live, and you will actually begin to see Becca as we go live on our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week internet radio station, WKAP, Faith Empowerment Radio. She will be with us live Zooming as we go forward, still live streaming and broadcasting on our new 24-hour, 7-day-a-week internet radio station, which will be launching. Our target date is Sunday, March 27th. So tune in. You don't want to miss this. We will go live with 24-hour music that will be played in our 24-hour internet radio station. And in addition to that, there will be segments that will be done. Of course, 3D will be a segment that will be inputted in the rotation. And of course, some of our other segments like health and wellness, mental health and wellness, and financial literacy and entrepreneurship. So stay tuned. You don't want to miss this. We really want to make certain that everyone has the opportunity to enhance the quality of their life and be empowered So we are launching WKAP, Faith Empowerment Radio. I'm going to address a communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that your children are dealing with some major issues. Now, of course, they want you to help them through their issues. And you said in your communication, some of them, the issues are issues that they brought on themselves. And you want to help them through it. However, your husband is saying, let them figure it out. Let them go through what they need to go through to get, a better understanding of how to navigate life. So let me first of all say this to you. Your responsibility, and this is for all of us, I'm going to share a couple of components with you regarding this issue. Our responsibility as parents, our responsibility lies within housing, food, and clothing. In addition to that, education. So I want to use this because I know when we were the baby boomer generation, we were taught that, some were pushed towards education. Some of us found our way to education. Others were told, because we've all heard this, I'm going to keep a roof over your head, I'm going to keep food on the table and clothes on your back. Those are the basic responsibilities. I will add into that education. It's our responsibility to help our children to navigate higher education. Doesn't always mean that you have to pay for it. It means we have to help them navigate it. What I'm going to say is this. Your husband is correct, because part of what your children are going through, and you got to understand this from his perspective, part of what they're going through, they brought on themselves. Trying to keep up with their friends, trying to live out, as society has told them, your best life now. Well, you're not living your best life if your life is not flourishing. So that you want to make certain when you live your best life that your life is flourishing, not that you are squandering the blessings that God has given you. So part of it is something they brought on themselves. Part of it is, career, employment, but some of that may be what they brought on themselves. Attitude determines altitude, so, they may need an attitude adjustment. Here's the reality. The reality is that sometimes you have to allow your children to return to the nest so they can fly the nest with their wings fully prepared. Because when they go out into the world, and that's what I mean when I say housing, food, and clothing. When they go out into the world and they allow themselves to be guided by the way of the world and by what society tells them is your best life, and then they find themselves in a predicament where they can't fulfill certain obligations, you might have to allow them to go through something. You might have to allow them to come home where they had food, housing, food, and clothing. You might not want to get in the practice of doing what they want you to do so that they can sustain themselves while they're outside of the household. While they're living their own lives. If you have an adult child, young adult child, and I don't mean you, this is for all of our listeners and viewers, you do have a young adult, but they're an adult. You have more than one adult. And for all of us, if you have a child living outside of your household, they should be living with the understanding of the rules and guidelines that you taught them as a child. The Bible says, train up a child in the way they should go. When they grow old, they won't depart from it. Now, if they depart from it while they're out there in the world, they're going to go through some challenges and they're going to endure some struggle. They're going to find themselves on the struggle bus. The reality is they have to go through that so that they continue to grow. so that they can finally flourish. Now, if they can't pay for their apartment because, I'm not suggesting that you should allow them to lose wealth if someone loses their job and can't afford to pay their mortgage and you're trying to all figure out a way to navigate that. That's a different dynamic, because then it's impacting family wealth. But if they're renting an apartment making people like us rich, and they are finding themselves that they can't pay their rent because they've wasted and squandered the blessings of God, your job is not to pay their rent. Your job is to say, if you can't support yourself, you need to come home, because obviously the rules have not carried over outside of the household, and so therefore you need to come home and you need to spend some time learning the process of being an adult. And when they come home, they have to live by your rules, because they haven't learned to navigate the rules. Whatever rules you set, they have to learn to adjust to those rules. The problem is we want to be friends with our children, and so because we want to be friends with them, we support whatever they do. Well, that's not always good for them. And one thing you have to understand is what your husband may not have said it in this way, but what he's saying to you is, when he says let them figure it out, he's saying let them go to God and allow God to do in them whatever he's doing. It may not feel good. It may not feel good to them. It may not feel good to you. But you've got to let them go through it. You've got to let them experience it. Now, if they don't want to come home, they're gonna find their way by struggling through it. They may find it necessary to take a job they don't really like, because they've got to pay their rent. Here, let me give you an example of a problem. If they waited 3 months until they're about to get evicted for not paying their rent, they didn't adhere to the rules they were taught in the household. First of all, they're taught to pay their bills before they entertain themselves. And second of all, why would you wait 3 months if you missed your rent the first month? They should have talked to you then when they missed their first rent payment and got assessed fees. They should have talked to you then so you could help them to address the issue in whatever way you were going to address it. They should have talked to you then, instead of waiting until it piles up and now they're 2-3 months behind and about to get evicted before they have a conversation with you. It doesn't make sense. But the reason in most cases, sometimes people say it's embarrassment that they don't want to talk to you because they're behind. But the real reason is because they know they haven't done what was necessary to be done. And so consequently, they would rather wait until they're in crisis, because they'll know you will respond to the crisis. They should have addressed it early on when the problem first occurred, and then you could assist them in navigating the circumstances. And often they're afraid that you're going to tell them, you're going to have to come home because I can't pay for your apartment and all of my own expenditures. That may not be the case, but that might be the case. But sometimes it could just be as simple as you understand they're not ready. But if you keep enabling them, they're never going to get ready, because they know that you're going to be the safety valve. You're going to be the safety net. You're going to be the one that they go to when they need something. And the reason is because they did what they wanted to do when they wanted something. We've got to be real careful, and this is for all of us who are parents. We have to be real careful not to enable our children to do the wrong things. We have to be certain that we don't play a part in that. Our responsibilities are housing, food, and clothing, until they become of adult age, which in our society is 21. Now, that doesn't mean that everything's going to be perfect for them at 21 or 22 when they graduate from college. What that means is that they become an adult. Now you have to conduct yourself as an adult. And whatever that may look like, at the end of the day, we have to make a decision that we're going to get out of God's way and let God be God. That's what we have to do. So I want to encourage you to take what your husband said to heart. Let them figure it out. And allow them to go through what's necessary for them to go through. We're not going to see our children hungry. We're not going to let them get rained on. We're not going to let them go hungry. And we're not going to let them walk around naked because there's laws against that. Everything else is a plus. And we have to decide when we're going to become involved and when we're going to get out of God's way. Now, it's a little different if our children are trying to build wealth and, they encounter a couple of missteps along the way. Those things happen, and, we encourage them to build wealth. We should encourage them to do that. Some moments, there may be some assistance required to do that, and that's okay. But, however, if it's just the fact of them living according to society's ways and living in the world, being conformed to the world, we're in God's way, and we've got to get out of God's way. We've got to let them grow so that they can learn to flourish or learn to fly. This segment of the broadcast has been brought to you by T-Mobile, America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. So if you are not currently a T-Mobile customer, you may call or text on the T-Mobile call or text line at 267-992-1424. We will move you into our queue so that you may become a T-Mobile customer and experience America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. Taxes and fees are included in your bill, and if you auto pay by attaching a credit card to your account, you will receive a discount on your monthly bill. At T-Mobile, America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that you are working on a business project. You've been working on a business project for quite some time. Things have stalled and you are not quite certain what to do that will move the project forward. So let me share with you how this works. Often when you're working on certain things, you will find when you're working on business projects, investments, you will find from time to time things can be stalled. Sometimes not due to anything that is within your control. Sometimes it's because you have to wait for additional information. You may need an analysis report. You may need a feasibility study. There are a lot of reasons that projects can be stalled. But don't get discouraged. If it's something that you don't have control over, you cannot become discouraged by the project being stalled. What you can then do is two things. You can go back and review everything that you have done to examine the possibility that something that you may have left undone caused the project to stall. If that is not the case, the next step is to look at what you can do when the project moves forward again by making certain that it's going to move at a consistent pace. So in order to do that, you have to examine the consequences of your implementation strategy, and you have to look at the unintended consequences. So often when a project stalls, it's because there is some component that has not been addressed. And if you've gone back and reviewed everything, and you know that everything that you've done to date has brought the project to this point, but now you've hit a wall that has caused the project to stall, you then have to be patient and look at what, moving forward, the consequences of your implementation strategy is going to be, or what the results are going to be. And when you look at the results and the consequences of your implementation strategy, then you're going to have to decide, are there unintended consequences that might occur? Sometimes projects are stalled. Listen to this. You have to trust God, first of all, that if the project's stalled, there's a reason and a purpose for it to be stalled. You have to trust God that it may just be that there is something that has not been done that will allow the project to move forward. And you have to analyze that. And you have to analyze, you have to look through the eyes of God. And you really have to analyze. And what I mean by looking through the eyes of God, to analyze, you have to really look beyond what the results might be, what the consequences of your implementation strategy might be, and you have to determine what the unintended consequences might be. Because all that's happening is that God's giving you an opportunity. See, we don't look at obstacles, we don't look at obstacles as opportunities, as being able to examine the opportunities. There may be more. I'm not going to get ahead of myself and get into another communication, but there may be more that God has intended for you that you haven't seen. And so the project may be stalled, allowing you to examine, analyze, research and analyze what more can be accomplished after the project begins to move forward again. Now, I will share with you, as I was prayerful about this, God allowed me to see in that secret place of your life. Your project is stalled right now beyond your control. There's some other components that have to be completed by by external forces. And all you can do is keep putting it in front of them to remind them that every day that it's delayed is delaying progress. If you delay progress, you delay revenue, you delay profit. So you have to stay in front of them, make certain they stay on point, but it's not in your control right now. So spend your time looking through the eyes of God to determine what you can do once the project is no longer stalled to maximize the success. Your implementation strategy is really going to have to be examined so that it lines up with coming out of the stalled phase of the project and moving the project forward. You know the results you want to achieve. Will that achieve the results? And if not, what are the consequences of that? And what are the unintended consequences of that? And one of the things that we have to do is we have to think forward. We have to, I'll use a prime example. So I'm a chess player. I enjoy the game of chess. And one of the things that you have to do in chess is you have to think 3, 4, and sometimes you might even be able to think 5 moves ahead. And what you're doing when you do that is, you know that if you move your knight to Queen's Castle 2, you know that you're positioning your knight so that when you bring your queen out, you're going to be able to protect her as you line up to perhaps put someone in a checkmate 4 or 5 moves ahead. But you have to understand what your opponent's going to do. And in business, now I understand the opponent is always the devil. You know, there's an old expression in the corporate environment, the devil's in the details. I really understand that now. I understand that even more than when I was in the corporate world. And the reason is because, you know, some people call it the fine print. We've all been through that phase too. But, you know, as you grow, you get a better understanding of things. Yes, you have to read the fine print. The devil is in the details because not only is it in the fine print, but what are the consequences of the fine print? And even what are the unintended consequences of the fine print? So you've got to understand what your opponent is doing, you know, in response to the move you make. And then what is your opponent going to do in the response of the next move you make? And what is your opponent going to do in response of the subsequent move that you're going to make? So you really have to think 3, 4, and possibly 5 moves ahead to get a real understanding of how you can win, for lack of a better term. So I want to encourage you, don't feel, you know, anxiety. Don't get into a place of anxiety because the project's being stalled. Don't get into a place where you feel like you're not going to be able to move forward. You will be able to move forward. It's just going to take you implementing the necessary steps to move forward. And as soon as the other parties complete what they need to complete, you will then be able to implement the remainder of your strategy. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by Charles Tyrwhitt, located in London, the UK. They also have stores in New York, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and at the King of Prussia Mall in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. So if you're in any of those areas, stop in at their retail store. They have everything that a man could possibly need: shirts for men, ties for men, suits for men, and accessories. And if you're not in any of those areas, you can order from Charles Tyrwhitt at ctshirts.com. They will ship and deliver right to your front door in an appropriate period of time. And the White Company, located in London, the UK. They also have a store on Fifth Avenue in New York. So if you're in New York, stop in at their retail store. They have everything you could possibly need. They have home goods, clothing for men, women, and children. And if you're not in New York, you can order from The White Company at thewhitecompany.com. They too will ship and deliver right to your front door in an appropriate period of time. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that you have been accused of saying just whatever comes to your mind, and it appears to be a problem for other people. However, you want your opinion to be heard, and yet it impacts your relationships. You know, it's interesting that I'm addressing this conversation today because I just experienced something this morning when I went to visit with our students at the Achievers Academy for class. And, you know, we are in the process of preparing for a college tour for our students. And one of the students made a comment this morning that literally eliminated himself from making the trip. So what I mean by that is instructions were given for the tour, and he made a comment that he's going to make an effort to go against the instructions. He wanted to do something the way he wanted to do it, and probably was thinking it in his head and yet said it out loud. Well, we know he was thinking it in his head, but what I'm saying is it's something he probably should have kept in his head, but he said it out loud. And the moment he said it out loud, I heard it, and I said to myself, okay, since you're going to do that, and you've now announced that you're going to do it, perhaps so that he might have some apparent reaction from some of his fellow students, but yet you've eliminated yourself from the equation. You can't say what you want to say at all times just because you want to say it. It will have an impact on relationships. Sometimes it will eliminate you from opportunities. So I'm going to say to you, keep your thoughts to yourself unless your opinion is based on a fact that's going to add something to the conversation. It will be a problem for others. It will eliminate you sometimes for promotions. In this case, it eliminated a young man from the trip, from the college tour. Hopefully, we'll get him in the right place, in the right state of mind. He'll be able to make the next tour. Today's Daily Divine Direction broadcast, 3D, was brought to you by Fiji Water. A taste of paradise will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery, and you'll save money.